In the cold and dark prison, a man with an arrogant face walked into the cell. After many days of waiting, he finally met the legendary murderer. Before Haru entered the cell, he slipped a wad of money to the prison warden so he could freely talk to the prisoner. He placed 2 pieces of paper on the table and proposed a deal. Haru said, "I will make a fake medical record to help you get out and commit the crime you want. In return, you must give me your brain after you die." Haru had a hobby of researching human brains. Now, he was aiming for the brain of this evil prisoner. At first, he did not doubt it and immediately signed the brain donation agreement. But Haru immediately tore up the agreement and acted as if he had never promised him anything. Haru looked at the man before him with contempt. How could someone like him cooperate with a criminal? Roaring angrily, the prisoner suddenly removed his handcuffs. As soon as Haru entered, he had hidden a pin so he could open the handcuffs at any time. He immediately attacked the doctor and threatened that he would drag you to hell. But Haru was not a weakling. Haru quickly threw him to the floor. When the prison guard heard the alarm and ran in with Haru's assistant, the prisoner quickly swallowed the brain donation commitment to destroy the evidence. After destroying the evidence, he laughed. The prisoner declared that Haru would never get what he wanted. Yet, just 2 days later, his brain was in Haru's hands. To achieve his goal, the doctor did not hesitate to forge the brain donation commitment. The assistant was worried when Haru intended to take the brain of a dead man, because if this was exposed, his reputation would be ruined. However, Haru still insisted that the assistant put a paper on the door so that no one would disturb him while he performed the brain surgery. At that moment, Haru had the opportunity to meet Mongi, an inspector who was looking for his help in the case he was pursuing. Mongi obediently listened to Haru and lay still waiting for him to return. As a result, Mongi was mistaken by the assistant for the prisoner's corpse. Mongi even had a piece of hair cut off. Thanks to Myungsi's coincidental appearance, Haru successfully locked the operating room to take the murderer's brain. When the hospital director arrived, everything was already done. There was no way to save it. The head of the department was extremely disappointed with Haru's thoughtless actions. No matter how much he loved and admired Haru's talent, it was still illegal to use someone else's brain without permission. The next day, standing before the Research Institute's board, Haru gave a speech about his achievements over the years. Everyone in the room was benefiting from the funding he had worked so hard to get. He thought the board would go easy on him because of his contributions, but the interests of an individual are never greater than the interests of the group. The board decided to remove Haru from his position. This left him speechless. Back in his office, he sighed thinking about the prospect of unemployment when Mongi called. Mongi was extremely pleased to see the newspaper report criticizing Haru as an unscrupulous scientist. Mongi was still angry about having a piece of hair cut off. Mongi constantly teased and deepened Haru's pain of failure, making him furious. However, the next morning, at the police station, Haru appeared with an extremely friendly attitude. Mongi was surprised to see Haru there. Mongi thought Haru came to cause trouble, but Haru held out his hand and said that from now on, they should cooperate in solving the case. He wanted to participate in the investigation as a forensic expert. When the case was successful, the hospital would definitely regret firing him. Sooner or later, Haru would regain his top position. Back to Mongi's case. A famous singer suddenly fell off the stage and died during a performance. His wife testified that he had told her to adjust the electric level of the bracelet to the highest level when he was performing at his peak. Because he had Parkinson's disease, activating the electric current through his brain would help him maintain that shining state. His wife's testimony completely matched the autopsy results. The only difficulty for the police team was to determine whether it was really the victim's wish or if the wife was hired by someone to kill her husband. Haru stood outside and observed the wife's attitude in the interrogation room. Although the police were very gentle, she was still trembling all over. Her face was always filled with fear. Haru walked in and greeted her with a friendly attitude and asked if she remembered him. They had met at a concert. She looked at Haru for a while before smiling back. Haru started the conversation so naturally that she forgot her initial anxiety and fear. After she left, he immediately told the police that she was lying. The story of meeting at the concert was just made up by him. This was the first time they met. So why did the victim's wife claim to have met him? The police team doubted Haru's hypothesis, but when they went to the doctor treating the victim's wife, he confirmed that she had a memory disorder. It was possible that she had brain atrophy, so sometimes her memory was distorted. She was also an alcoholic. This made her condition worse. The team returned to the police station to discuss the next plan. At present, they had learned that both the singer and his wife had a brain-related disease. Only a few people knew about this, including the bearded manager and a female doctor who treated both of them. The detective immediately summoned the manager for questioning. However, he had an alibi. Because he had been on the phone with his wife for 3 hours during the concert, alert. The manager even took the initiative to give Myung-se his phone to check, and his attitude was completely fearless. This showed that he was most likely telling the truth. However, Haru and Myung-se still had to interrogate the doctor, because they did not rule out any suspects. This female doctor mainly worked with the singer and was in the industry, so she talked to Haru very comfortably. The brown-haired girl also mentioned that his wife's alcoholism made the singer extremely upset. Haru secretly observed and noticed that the female doctor's tone seemed to show that she did not like the victim's wife very much. Myung-se showed the doctor a video recording of the moment of the murder. In the video, she went to see the wife. According to the lip reading, the words she said were, "You killed him." The doctor's expression changed, and she explained that she said that because she was angry. Haru took the opportunity to ask if she loved the singer. She smiled faintly and replied that of course she did. She was his fan. That night, in a fit of anger, she drove to the riverbank, opened her phone, and looked at the pictures she took with the singer. It turned out that they had been secretly seeing each other for a while. Heartbroken, but determined to break up, she threw her phone into the river. She wanted to erase all evidence of the affair. Unexpectedly, her action was recorded by the bearded manager. The next morning, he brought the secretly recorded video to the police station and insisted that police should focus on the doctor, not the wife. According to him, the doctor loved the singer very much. When she was broken up with, she was so heartbroken and miserable that she could do anything. Haru sat aside, pondering the three suspects. Everyone had a motive, but the manager caught Haru's attention the most. At the time of the murder, he was wearing headphones and most likely used another phone with software installed to control the victim's bracelet. Thinking that, Haru immediately dragged Myung-se to the manager's company. Thinking he was safe, he continued to talk leisurely, but Haru kept asking questions. Immediately after, Haru took out two phones and asked the manager to choose one. Haru's constant pressure and questioning made the manager lose his patience. His calm demeanor disappeared and was replaced by anger and annoyance. Myung-se happily exposed the manager's falsification of evidence from the fact that he deliberately wore headphones to talk to his wife for the camera to see, while in reality, he used another phone to activate the electric waves that killed the singer. Knowing that the manager would find a way to destroy the evidence, Haru and Myung-se pretended to leave the company. Thinking that the two had gone far away, the manager immediately ran to the wooded area to throw away the phone that caused the crime. But when he raised his head, he saw the two of them waiting. Haru thanked the manager for personally providing them with evidence. Knowing that he was about to be caught in the law, the fat man ran away. But Myung-se quickly stopped him and the two got into a fight. In the end, Haru and Myung-se successfully arrested the manager. It turned out that the singer's death was a plot he had orchestrated. The police even found his internet search history, a long-term plan to make money, even after his artist passed away. Taking advantage of fans' affection for personal gain is truly an immoral person. After the case was solved, Haru happily answered the press. He said that his current job was a temporary consultant for the police team, and that in the future he would do many good deeds to regain people's trust. In a cell, a white-haired old man was watching the news about Haru. He smiled and said that the boy from that day had grown up. At the same time, a woman was found dead in her closet by her boyfriend. The victim's face was burned so badly that it was unrecognizable. Even the victim's fingerprints were burned. When the police examined the body, they found identification papers and learned that the victim's name was Tuong, a Vietnamese woman married to a Korean man. The relationship between the couple was not very warm. They often argued. The abusive husband even threatened to kill Tuong. The husband was immediately summoned for questioning, but what surprised everyone was that he suffered from face blindness. To confirm this condition, Haru requested a brain test. The results showed that the husband did indeed suffer from a neurological disease related to face blindness. Although his testimony seemed credible, he was still a suspect that needed to be monitored. The police continued to expand the investigation to two other people. They were Hoi, Thuong's best friend, and Lo, Hoi's boyfriend, who also discovered the body. Both were illegal workers. This made the search difficult. After a long chase, Myung-se finally caught Lo. According to Lok's testimony, Thuong often argued with her husband, then moved to Hoi's house to stay. There was also a conflict between the two girls about money. The investigation team immediately split up to find Hoi's whereabouts. Myung-se carefully checked the cameras at the construction site where Hoi worked to see if she had returned. Meanwhile, police officer Seo-ah was constantly scolded by her superiors because she rarely went to the field. Her boss also often bullied her and criticized her for lacking a stance. To prove her power, this time Seo-ah personally went to Hoi's house to investigate. She discovered an important piece of evidence, a photo of Thuong and Hoi together. She suddenly realized something unusual on the ID card. She realized that the tattoo on the victim's body could be completely fake. Seo-ah immediately called Myung-se to tell him the important news. Unfortunately, she had an accident and had to be rushed to the emergency room. Her head was hit by a nail, causing severe brain damage. To get the information Seo-ah had found, Haru used a special neurological method. Although Seo-ah could not speak, her brain could still respond to the questions asked. Thanks to that, Seo-ah responded to Myung-se's question and accidentally revealed a shocking news. Hoi was the one who was killed, not Thuong. However, they still could not collect evidence until Seo-ah woke up. Haru judged that someone must have intentionally stored Hoi's belongings in Thuong's house to falsify the DNA test results. Myung-se and Haru went to Thuong's house to talk to her husband. They discovered that the cold storage there was extremely suspicious. The two of them were locked inside just a few minutes after entering. They tried every way to escape, but to no avail. If no one came to their rescue in time, they would freeze to death. Even Haru, who rarely lost his temper, began to feel scared. Being in the cold storage for so long gave him a severe headache. Memories of being locked up as a child came flooding back. When Myung-se asked him how he was, Haru responded in a gruff voice and the two started fighting. They wrestled for a long time before Haru calmed down. Afterwards, they sat next to each other and talked. Haru apologized for losing his temper. The temperature inside the cold storage continued to drop dangerously, forcing Myung-se and Haru to hug each other to keep warm. Just when they thought they were about to freeze to death, Thuong's husband suddenly appeared and rescued them both. Thuong's husband told the detectives that he wasn't home yesterday, but just in case, he installed a camera in the warehouse. When they checked the camera, they saw that it was Thuong's sister who locked the door. Myung-se immediately understood that she was trying to stall for time to keep them at the warehouse. Haru suggested going to Thuong's sister's house, but when they got there, the husband said that his wife had been missing for several days. Her phone was also turned off, and she had brought her niece, Thuong's child. In fact, Thuong had pretended to be her sister to enter the house and get her passport, then went to the airport where her sister was waiting with the baby. The Vietnamese girl burst into tears and said that she wanted to go home after everything that had happened. Thuong recalled the moment she discovered Hoi's body in the closet. Because she was so panicked, she didn't call the police. When she went through the airport security, she calmly presented her passport. It proved that the documents were still completely valid. If Thuong was really dead, her sister would definitely declare her dead. The passport would not be able to be used normally. That proved that the dead person was not her. Myung-se quickly arrested Thuong. He was extremely happy because he thought he had caught culprit. But she burst into tears and begged, claiming that she did not kill Hoi. When questioned at the police station, she still insisted that she was innocent. She recounted that on the day of the murder, when she returned home, she found her best friend dead in the closet. In a fit of panic, Thuong did not report to the police, but instead tried to burn Hoi's body. Thuong choked up as she recounted the days of being abused by her husband. She lived in humiliation and tears. She just wanted to escape from that abusive man. Finally, Thuong told the police that she suspected Hoi's boyfriend was the murderer because recently the two of them had been arguing a lot. After Haru examined the situation, he and the police team decided to use a lie detector to find the murderer between Locke and the abusive husband. When Thuong appeared in front of Locke, he reacted strongly and immediately affirmed that he did not kill Hoi. Haru checked his brainwaves and confirmed that he was telling the truth. Meanwhile, Thuong's husband could not recognize his wife's face, but he recognized her through her earrings. His surprise when he saw his wife caught Haru's eye. Haru quickly realized that the husband was hiding his fear. Knowing that he could not escape the crime, he confessed to killing Hoi. He mistook Hoi for Thuong because Hoi wore the same earrings as her. In the end, the Korean-Vietnamese couple were both imprisoned, one for murder, the other for destroying a corpse. Seo-ah finally woke up after the case was solved. The strong impact caused her nerves to change significantly. Seo-ah went to work in a bright red outfit, surprising everyone with her bold new look. What was more shocking was that she dared to talk back to the department head, causing him to angrily slap her. But a few seconds later, the bullying department head got a taste of suffering when Seo-ah knocked him down right in front of Myung-se's stunned eyes. Haru sat in a corner and analyzed that Seo-ah's brain was affected at the time of the accident, leading to a change in personality, but in a positive way. At the prison, the white-haired man met the head of the department, Haru's former superior from the research institute. The head of the department worriedly asked why the prisoner wanted to see Haru. The white-haired man, surnamed Huang, was an extremely dangerous prisoner, despite having a doctorate. He told the arresting department head that he had been following the news about Haru and admired his way of thinking and creativity in removing the murderer's brain. The man also asked if Haru knew the truth behind his parents' death. Hearing this, the department head immediately left and reminded Mr. Huang not to contact Haru. What the department head was worried about soon happened. The next day, Haru came to the prison to meet Mr. Huang alone. The The old man looked at the young man in front of him with interest. He wondered if Haru remembered who he was. Haru did not know how dangerous this seemingly sane man was. In fact, he was a neurologist who had killed 7 patients by overdosing on morphine just to satisfy his own perverted pleasure. Looking at this silver-haired old man, Haru realized that in some aspects, this person had a similar mindset to him. But the big difference was that Haru absolutely did not harm innocent patients. Haru told the doctor that he was looking for a psychopath's brain for his research. Mr. Wong's brain was an ideal candidate. Mr. Wong did not care about that and frankly expressed his wish for Haru to become his companion. 4 hours would be enough. Haru did not believe in friendship with a psychopath, but Haru considered this an investment to get his brain, so Haru happily agreed. Before returning to the prison, Mr. Wong, with a sinister face, whispered to a guard that he would transmit negative and painful emotions to Haru. At that moment, the old doctor became the happiest person in the world. The Neuroscience Investigation Department received a new case involving a 7-year-old girl, Miju, who was suspected of murdering her father. She also suffered from aphasia. According to the story, Miju's father fell from the rooftop. Her mother ran up and saw her holding a knife. When the police team questioned her, she couldn't speak. She could only write a description and nod. When asked who was with Miju on the rooftop, she wrote ghost. The police officer asked if Miju could describe what the demon looked like, but she was so scared that she held her head and shook it and fainted. Her mother ran in, sobbing. She was taken to the hospital, but the mother refused to let her daughter get treatment. The mother insisted that Miju was possessed. The act of killing her father was controlled by a demon. The whole team met to analyze Miju's case. The MRI results showed that her brain was completely normal. Myung-se meets an acquaintance of Miju's mother and learns that she is obsessed with a cult. This leads to many arguments between the couple. Haru and Myung-se go to the cult headquarters to find out more, but it is not easy to meet the leader. Myung-se begs them, but they are still refused. Immediately, Haru shows his acting skills. He steps up and manipulates the followers by talking as if he is also a member of the cult. Thanks to that, the detectives met the cult leader and questioned her about Miju's case. The leader of this superstitious organization often preached about supernatural powers. She also said that there were many things in the world that humans could not explain. On the day of the murder, the leader said that she was praying to the savior. All the believers could testify. Myung-se heard the superstitious words that made him extremely uncomfortable. He immediately told Haru to leave this rotten place as soon as possible. Right after they left, the cult leader met Miju's mother and asked her to perform an exorcism for her daughter as soon as possible. Back at the workplace, everyone agreed that the superstitious cult had made Miju kill her father. Only Haru thought differently. He explained that aphasic patients were very good at detecting lies. It was very difficult to manipulate the psychology of such people. Haru suggested examining Miju's brain. He used a sophisticated testing machine to recreate the image of her mind. Outside, Haru asked about the person Miju saw on the rooftop. Gradually, the image was recreated by the machine, but it was Miju. This made Haru extremely disappointed. Myung-se still did not believe that she was the culprit who killed her father. He drove back to the rooftop and noticed something strange. There was a mirror that clearly reflected the door to the rooftop, indicating that Miju had seen the cult leader through the mirror. Realizing this important point, Myung-se returned to the office and reviewed the image recreated by the machine from Miju's brain. There was clearly a blurry figure behind. The team leader provides another important piece of information. When questioned privately, Miju admits that the leader is the person she saw on the rooftop. Sewa shows the video to Miju's mother, but she still blindly believes in the leader. It seems that she has been completely brainwashed and does not care that her daughter is being accused. The police team decides to infiltrate cult's lair to find out how they operate. To carry out this mission, Miju and Sewa secretly join the cult. They pretend to be a married couple. Myung-se pretends to be paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair. The police duo acts well and quickly wins the leader's trust. At the same time, Sewa promises that she will donate 1 billion won to help them participate in Miju's exorcism. At the exorcism, Sewa and Miju are worried, especially when they see the leader forcing the followers to take a pill. Sewa easily swallows the pill, but Myung-se cannot and vomits it out. Seeing this, the leader decided to postpone the exorcism on Miju. Instead, Myung-se would be the one to undergo the exorcism. He had no choice but to lie still while the leader whipped him continuously. Although the beating was very painful, he still had to endure it for the mission to succeed. This action scared Miju's mother very much, but she still let her daughter perform the exorcism. Just as the leader was about to whip Miju, a mysterious figure suddenly appeared in the hall. Haru disguised himself as a savior to save everyone. His mysterious appearance made the believers believe that he was the real savior. The cult leader doesn't let him go easily. Just as she's about to expose Haru, Sewa screams. She announces that her husband is walking again. This causes the crowd to cheer. Using that opportunity, Haru takes Miju and her mother to escape. Myung-se and Seoa arrest cult leader on assault charges, but due to lack of evidence for other crimes, she is quickly released thanks to a good defense lawyer. Haru takes Miju and her mother to an isolated house with the aim of helping the young mother to open her mind. Myung-se confides in the feelings of parents who have to worry about their children, especially single parents. He wants Miju's mother to understand that it's not just the cult that provides sympathy and a sense of security, but Haru himself is trying to help her by talking and explaining. Finally, Miju's mother confesses the truth about her husband's murder. On the day of the accident, she ran to her husband, who was lying down. With the last of his strength, he begged her to leave the evil cult. It was the leader who attacked Miju's father with a knife, causing him to fall off the roof. After many days of studying Miju's condition, Haru discovered that she had a malignant tumor. After an ultrasound of her abdomen, he was even more certain of his diagnosis. Haru and the doctors successfully operated on Miju, helping her to regain her health. At this time, her mother, Ume, understood that she was sick and not possessed by an evil spirit. At the cult's hospital, the leader tried to brainwash Miju's mother again, but she completely came to her senses and revealed everything, including the leader's incitement to blame the murder on her own daughter. While the leader was the culprit, the police team had a hard time proving that the leader was the culprit. Because there were no cameras recording the crime at the time of the crime, there were no audio recordings either. Miju's mother helped expose the cult leader by telling them a big secret. Thanks to that, the police found the skeleton of a young girl who died during an exorcism hidden right next to the cult's building. This hot news was quickly reported by reporters everywhere. Although the leader was arrested, there were still many followers who blindly worshipped her. What made the Haru group just look down and shake their heads? It was truly hopeless. Thanks to solving this heresy case, the Neuroscience Investigation Department was praised by their superiors. Especially, Myung-se was going to be honored at the Best Police Officer Award ceremony. On the day of the award ceremony, everyone was happy to congratulate Myung-se. However, just as he was speaking, a controversial video suddenly appeared on the screen. In the clip, Myung-se was filmed walking with a teenage girl with a furtive appearance. The person who spread the video was none other than Haru. The purpose was to make him lose face in front of the crowd. Unexpectedly, the girl in the clip came to the ceremony to express her gratitude to Myung-se. In front of everyone, the beautiful girl recounted how Myung-se saved her from the men who lured her into the hotel. He even knelt down to apologize on their behalf. The whole hall gasped in surprise and then burst into endless applause for Myung-se. Only Haru was angry because he could not destroy Myung-se's reputation. That night, Haru did not attend dinner with the police team but went straight home. Myung-se called Haru and told him to go out to clarify the clip. Haru did not hide his true purpose, which was to humiliate Myung-se. Myung-se almost had his honor damaged, so he angrily punched Haru. The two of them were like high school students fighting to win. However, even though they were fighting fiercely, Myung-se immediately stopped to help an old lady. What made Haru curious about his brain structure? Why was he always so kind? The next day, a man walked into the police station hesitantly. When Myung-se asked what he needed, the man named Bong-soo said that his wife was missing. The reason was that she was hurt when she found out her husband was having an affair with Jishi. Everyone thought the mistress was a girl, but the surprise was that Jishi was a robot, product of artificial intelligence. Bong-soo affirmed that Jishi loved him, and he loved her too. Faced with this unbelievable confession, Myung-se called Haru for advice. Haru just told him to go to Bong-soo's house to investigate. What made Myung-se disappointed was that Haru did not go with him. However, he still went there alone. The strange thing was that even though Bong-soo was home, he did not open the door. Myung-se met the neighbor next door and learned that Bong-soo's wife had accused him of domestic violence. Only then did Bong-soo open the door for Haru to come in. When asked about Jishi, Bong-soo paranoidly said that she was not home. Feeling suspicious, Myung-se went to check everywhere. As a result, when he opened the spare bedroom, he discovered Bong-soo's wife curled up in a corner. Bong-soo immediately became angry and kept screaming that it was not his wife but Jishi. The wife woke up weakly and said that her husband wanted to harm her. Hearing that, Myung-se arrested Bong-soo for domestic violence. After a few interrogations, Haru suspected that Bong-soo had a mental problem, so Haru took Bong-soo for a lie detector test. It turned out that Bong-soo had Capgras syndrome, a rare disease that causes the patient to not recognize relatives and mistake them for someone else. Bong-soo's wife also said that he had mistaken her for Jishi. He even beat her because he thought she would report him for cheating. After learning about his illness, she signed a non-reporting form so that he could get treatment. However, she was still curious why he mistook her for someone else. How did he really feel about his wife? Haru stood aside and showed her how to understand her husband's true feelings. The wife pretended to be Jishi and asked Bong-soo if he loved her. He gently replied that although he liked Jae-shi's gentleness, the person he loved the most was still his wife. Hearing his sincere words, she was moved and apologized for not paying more attention to him. She even blamed herself for his illness. Fortunately, after the surgery, Bong-soo recognized his wife. The strange illness accidentally brought the couple closer together. Everything seemed to be going well. But the next day, Haru went to the police station and announced that he was leaving the team. Myung-se did not understand what was going on. He tried to convince Haru to stay. When they both went outside, they saw Bong-soo with blood on his clothes and confessed that he had killed someone. The sudden murder forced Haru to postpone leaving the team to join the investigation. The group quickly went to the scene of the murder. Bong-soo confessed that he had killed his neighbor, and his wife was a witness to the whole incident. According to Bong-soo's testimony, the neighbor had teased him about the Jae-shi incident, causing the incident to get out of control. Bong-soo angrily hit Myung-se with a trophy. However, the forensic results showed that his wife's fingerprints were also on the trophy. The entire investigation team reconstructed the murder scene based on the testimony. They argued that if the murderer really did it, there would be a lot of blood on their clothes, because the force of the trophy hitting the head was very strong. However, Bong-soo had almost no blood on him. This made the whole team suspect that his wife was the murderer. To find out the truth, the couple was asked to take a lie detector test. The wife refused because her mental health had been unstable recently. Meanwhile, Bong-soo was very willing. The polygraph test results showed that Bong-soo was telling the truth, but Seo reminded that this was not the final conclusion, because if the test taker completely believed in their thoughts, they could still fool the machine. The next day, the investigation team met again because of new developments. Seo checks the neighbor's phone and finds out that he has an ambiguous relationship with the wife. She's immediately summoned for questioning. Haru is friendly and tells her not to worry because her husband only has 35 years in prison. This startles the wife. Her hands tremble, showing her anxiety. Knowing the human psyche, Haru tries to trick her brain into revealing the truth. He tells her not to think about the murder. This makes her think about it even more. It causes excessive anxiety, leading to cramps. The detectives follow the wife to see where she goes. They find her carrying a bag and throwing it in the trash. Myung-se ends up rummaging through the trash to find the bag she threw away. Then, Myung-se discovered a trophy identical to the one the neighbor was murdered in. However, upon inspection, they only found the wife's fingerprints on it. Suddenly, Myung-se remembered the shirt that the wife said she had taken to the dry cleaner. It was the shirt she wore on the day of the murder. In fact, she had thrown it away. Immediately, the wife was summoned again. Haru and Myung-se presented all the evidence they had collected against her, but the wife was still stubborn and refused to admit her guilt. Haru continued to fight with her with a series of questions. This made the wife tremble with fear and fall to the floor. Unable to bear the torment and the burden of guilt, she finally admitted that she was the murderer. A few months ago, because she mistakenly thought her husband was having an affair, the wife secretly had an affair with the neighbor for a short time. When she wanted to end it, the lover wanted to maintain the relationship. What was even more annoying was that the neighbor kept attacking and insulting Bong-soo. At that moment, Bong-soo was standing near the stairs and heard the conversation. Bong-soo angrily rushed in and punched the guy. Even though he was beaten, the neighbor still spoke harshly. Unable to bear the humiliation of her husband, the wife grabbed a nearby trophy and hit her lover on the head. Bong-soo took all the blame out of love for his wife. In the end, the poor couple did not have a happy ending. One went to jail, the other got sick. After solving Bong-soo's case, Haru decided to leave the serious crime unit. Myung-se ran after him to persuade him to stay. Haru half-jokingly said that the condition for him to continue working was that Myung-se had to quit first. So the crime-solving duo continued to argue. At home, Haru was advised to try love once, but he still wondered if it would really happen to him. Then the day came when a girl with a smile as gentle as the spring breeze appeared and smiled at him. Meanwhile, Seo confessed to Myung-se on the mountain. Before he could hear his answer, Myung-se slipped and fell. Luckily, he only landed on a rock and was not injured. Seo pulled him up and whispered that she did not know how long she could stay strong, so she took the opportunity to express her feelings. At the same time, Haru met his childhood friend named Junhee, who had a crush on him for a long time. But because of her dry and unromantic personality, Haru only asked him briefly and left. This made Junhee a little disappointed. The psychiatric investigation team took on a new case, the case of a son who murdered his mother. This mother had two sons. The eldest son was addicted to video games and stayed in his room for 5 years. Every day, his mother had to bring him food. One day, she was so tired and desperate that she even poured detergent into the food. Luckily, her son didn't eat it and escaped. She knocked on the door to call him, but he didn't care. Both her children didn't listen. In a fit of anger, she turned off the power, preventing her eldest son from playing video games. The next day, she was found dead in the mountains. The police immediately went to find her eldest son, Jun Jang. His younger brother was surprised because his older brother was always in his room. How could Jun Jang go out and kill someone? However, while playing video games, Jun Jang's shirt was still stained with blood, but he didn't want to change it. When he was taken to the police station for questioning, Jun Jang said that he had killed his mother but had absolutely no memory of what happened. He kept insisting that he was only 17 years old. Meanwhile, Haru received a call from Mr. Huang. He was surprised to learn that Haru had left the major crime squad. There were still many interesting cases waiting for Haru to participate. Without Haru, Myung-se had difficulty investigating, so he waited outside to pull Haru back to the team. In exchange for Haru's cooperation, Myung-se was forced to sign a brain donation form for the research center. Thanks to that, Haru had the opportunity to make a contribution in front of the department head because he had helped the research institute collect quite a few donated brains. Keeping his promise, Haru returned to the major crime squad. When examining Junjang, Haru quickly diagnosed him with 30-minute temporary amnesia. The brain cannot create new memories and is still stuck at the time when he was 17. This makes Haru suspicious of his younger brother because the time of the murder and the time of the report were 1 hour apart. Seo-ah also added that Junjang could still remember important events even though the time was more than 30 minutes. When questioned, the younger brother honestly told about the complicated relationship in the family. He and Junjang were half-brothers. His mother hated his addiction to games and had abused him for a time. Although Junjang was accused of killing his mother, Haru still felt that it was not convincing enough. The police team found a witness who saw the killer enter the house. She was hypnotized to recount what she witnessed, but all she remembered was the strange scent coming from the killer. Immediately, Haru thought of a method to help the witness recall his memories. When the woman was put into a trance again, Sewa let her smell a glass of water. She immediately recognized a familiar scent. It was the smell of swimming pool water. The witness said that the boy she saw at that time had blood on his hands and a large scar. Haru's method proved to be extremely effective because the water sample he brought was from the swimming pool that his younger brother often went to. He also had a scar on his hand. As soon as they heard the witness's confirmation, Myung-se and Haru immediately thought of the younger brother as the culprit. Myung-se called him to the police station, but he refused and said he had to practice swimming all night. Not giving up, Myung-se waited at home and confronted him as soon as he returned. Knowing that he was about to be arrested, he immediately ran away. On the way, he even bumped into a young mother, almost causing the baby in the stroller to be hit by a car. Luckily, Myung-se pulled the stroller to safety. A few days later, the police team received a report that he was planning to jump off a building. Myung-se immediately ran up to the rooftop to advise him. Haru knew that soft words would not work on him, so Haru confidently walked up to him and asked him if he really wanted to die. When he said yes, Haru rushed towards him and jumped down with him. Haru was very sure because there was an air mattress prepared below so no one was injured. Haru's bold actions scared everyone, but thanks to that, culprit was controlled. At the police station, the older brother saw his younger brother handcuffed and got angry and shouted that his brother was not the murderer. Finally, the younger brother admitted to all his actions. It all started when his mother continuously abused Jungjang for a long time. His younger brother once saw his mother put bleach in his brother's food to harm him, but he was too afraid of her to confront her. Instead, he thought of a way to protect him. He told him not to eat anything his mother cooked. Every day, he secretly brought milk cakes to his brother. For 5 years, he secretly raised him to keep his brother alive. But then his mother discovered this. She scolded him and said that everything she did was for his brother's benefit. Too shocked by what his mother had done, he asked her to go up the mountain and threatened to kill herself with a knife to make her stop. During the struggle, his mother grabbed the knife, accidentally cutting her neck. When Jungjang saw his younger brother return home with a bloody shirt, he immediately put on his brother's shirt. He turned himself into his mother's killer and called the police to report a case. Although Jungjang's memory resets every 30 minutes, he still remembers the happy memories with his younger brother at the pool. He knows that his brother has always treated him well. It is the instinct of an older brother to protect his younger brother. Therefore, Jungjang does not hesitate to take the blame for his younger brother. After the case is over, Haru continues to help Myung-se overcome the painful memories of his ex-wife's betrayal. He takes Myung-se to the hotel where the police officer once saw his wife cheating with another man. Haru gently advises him to consider this as an experience, a way to face and overcome his inner fear. Haru also says that Myung-se should feel lucky that he saw his ex-wife's true nature in time and quickly divorced her. Thanks to Haru, Myung-se was finally able to dispel his long-standing psychological shadow. He made an appointment to meet Seo-ah for dinner and expressed his feelings. He completely opened his heart to accept her feelings. However, at Haru's house, a strange man broke in wearing a mask and carrying a knife to attack him. Haru picked up a nearby potted plant and threw it at the attacker, startling him. Taking advantage of Haru's carelessness, he drove away on his motorbike. He continued to break into an apartment building and used a smoke bomb to activate the fire alarm system and stormed into a young girl's apartment as soon as she opened the door to escape. The murder of this woman was quickly discovered by Myung-se's ex-wife and transferred to the neuroscience investigation team. When checking the victim's room, the police discovered a message on the mirror: "I only do what my brain tells me to." Finding the masked man was difficult because no one saw him. However, Seo-ah was able to determine the location of the victim's phone. They sent a signal from the Jangwon prison, where Old Hwang was being held. The person holding the victim's phone was none other than Old Hwang's trusted prison guard, In-ho, who was also the ex-boyfriend of the girl who had just been murdered. He murdered her because she was dating her new boyfriend. Old Hwang took advantage of In-ho's perverted jealousy to incite him to commit the crime and then turn himself in. The purpose was for Haru to be able to find the criminal. Next, In-ho went to the police station while Myung-se and Haru were on their way to the prison. In the car, the policeman checked the location and found In-ho heading towards the station. The prison guard entered the room. At this time, there was only the head of the room, so it was easy for him to act. However, he could not carry out his purpose because Haru appeared in time to stop him. Seo-ah was too powerful. With just one blow, she knocked In-ho down. He was quickly interrogated by Haru. The first question Haru asked In-ho was whether Old Hwang ordered him to do bad things. In-ho calmly replied that he was just following his commanding brain. He killed his ex-girlfriend out of jealousy. As for Haru, he explained that a man who had everything like Haru needed to taste some pain. This reason still did not convince Haru. The next day, Haru went to see Old Hwang in prison and asked him if he knew anything about my parents' accident. Because when In-ho attacked Haru the day before, he called him baby. It brought back memories of his childhood. Haru suspected that Old Hwang was the one who said this to In-ho to provoke him. He then went to the director to clarify his doubts. But the director begged Haru not to see Old Hwang anymore. He thought that he was a bad person. Regarding Haru's parents' accident, Mr. Park still insisted that it was a normal traffic accident, while in fact, Haru's parents were murdered. He tried to justify that Old Hwang was just provoking Haru. He added that when Haru's father was alive, Old Hwang and Old Hwang had many grudges with each other, so he absolutely should not believe what Old Hwang said. On the surface, Haru promised Director Park that he would not dig deeper into his parents' case, but in his heart, he was always determined to find the truth. The next day, Haru met his friend Junhee again. She was now the prosecutor handling In-ho's case. This prison guard, despite being poor, still hired a large law firm. This was already suspicious. He also requested a reduced sentence for In-ho on the grounds that he had a personality disorder. Surprisingly, Old Hwang was invited to court as a neurologist to prove that In-ho was really sick, appearing pitiful. He said that he was living proof of a personality disorder and could not control himself when he killed. In response, Junhee emphasized that there was no medicine that could control people with personality disorders. Therefore, they should be removed from society to reduce the risk to the community. Old Hwang agreed that there was currently no treatment, but some scientists are doing research. He even drags Haru into the case and says that he is doing research on the brains of criminals. The judge allows Haru to appear as an expert. Myung-se and Junhee worry and remind him to be careful. In front of everyone, Haru admits that mental illness is a disease that can be cured with proper research, but he opposes reducing in feelings. In-ho's sentence. He shows brain scans of 2 people with personality disorders and explains that not everyone with this disease will become a villain. Many mentally ill people have made important contributions to society, but In-ho's lawyer objected to this argument and asked for more evidence to prove Haru's words were valid. Then, he announced a shocking truth. The brain scan that was said to be of a mentally ill person was actually his own. Haru had the brain of a mentally ill person, but he had never intended to kill anyone. The whole room was stunned by his straightforward statement. The lawyer tried to defend his client, saying that the environment around a mentally ill person can affect the brain. In-ho was born into a poor family, so it was difficult to avoid mistakes, while Haru came from a wealthy family. To this argument, he replied that he lost his parents when he was 5 to 6 years old. That experience even interrupted his memory, but he grew up normally. The lawyer continued to argue that his job as a prison guard always exposed In-ho to dangerous criminals and easily gave rise to thoughts of harming others. Haru argued. He said he also had close ties with criminals. Many people wanted to kill him, but I never intended to kill them. He was different from the other psychopaths out there. He emphasized his ability to think rationally, unlike In-ho, who was manipulated by Old Hwang. Although Haru's statement might have been disadvantageous to the prison guard, Old Hwang was happy because it was what he wanted. wanted. His colleagues quickly accepted the fact that Haru had a mental disorder, but the reporters outside turned it into a topic of debate. They doubted whether Haru would turn himself into a murderer. He confidently asserted that such a thing would never happen. Myung-se and Sewa happily went on a date. Since he got a new girlfriend, he was always happy. At work, the two of them kept exchanging flirtatious glances. However, this sweet relationship had to end. Myung-se's ex-wife, who had long been known as a womanizer, had used stimulant diet pills in the past, leading to an affair and always being in a state of craving for men. The misunderstanding was cleared up, so she wanted to get back with Myung-se. To win back her former police husband, she went to Sewa and begged him to leave him. Sewa was in a dilemma. She herself was not sure about her feelings. Maybe it was because of her brain injury that she became confident and liked Myung-se. After thinking carefully, Sewa decided to let him return to his old family. On their last date, she told Myung-se that she could find someone better than him. This made him sad. He had just been proposed to but was rejected. Heartbroken, Myung-se calls Haru to go out drinking. Haru often complains about Myung-se, but in reality, he still cares about his friend. Haru listens to all his confidences. Despite their differences, the two still care for each other in their own way. Myung-se is currently living a peaceful life. However, an unexpected incident occurs. His daughter, Gina, causes trouble. She is trapped in her room with blood on her hands. Next to her is the body of her classmate. Too scared, Gina locks the door. Myung-se knocks on the door many times but gets no answer, so he breaks the door down. Myung-se was shocked when he saw a boy in his daughter's room. Luckily, he was still alive and was rushed to the hospital. Gina was immediately taken for questioning. She said that everything started with a group of bad friends who bullied others. They suddenly broke into her house. They also brought out alcohol and drank freely, then forced Gina to drink. After that, she didn't remember anything. Only when she woke up did she see her best friend lying unconscious in a pool of blood. The police took statements from the group of bad kids. They all said the same thing. Hoon-jun was the leader. He kept claiming that Gina and her best friend had argued, so they left right after that. When the police asked to check her phone, Gina gave it to them without hesitation. On the phone appeared a message from Gina to a classmate saying that she had hurt her best friend. The whole family was in turmoil, especially Myung-se. He was in a difficult situation when his daughter became the #1 suspect. He immediately called Hoon-jun to find out information. At the same time, Haru reminded Myung-se to carefully check Gina's phone records. Awakened by the reminder, Myung-se checked all night and discovered something strange. The time difference between Gina's text message to her friends and the emergency call was more than 10 minutes, while her testimony said that she called the emergency as soon as she woke up. This showed that at the time of sending the message, Gina was drunk and unconscious. It was very possible that the group of bad kids had taken her phone to text. Myung-se really wanted to explain the situation to his superiors, but since he was the suspect's father, the reliability of the evidence would be reduced. Seo-ah took the initiative to help him send important information to the procuracy. Gina had the last chance to prove her innocence, but unexpectedly, she confessed. The reason was that the bad kids threatened her by releasing drunken photos of her. Despite the threats, she did not tell her parents. This gave Myung-se a huge headache. He did not know how to solve his daughter's case other than working at police station. Meanwhile, Haru was still doing his research project. He was happy when In-ho agreed to donate his brain. However, before he could get the consent signature from the prison warden, the prison informed him that he had done something stupid. Haru was sure that Old Wang was behind the incident. He angrily called Old Wang, but the crazy old man denied responsibility. Old Wang just told Haru to slowly enjoy the unpleasant feeling of not getting what he wanted. Although disappointed that he could not get In-ho's brain, Haru had to take care of Myung-se's daughter's case first. He was already annoyed when he saw the naughty kids interrogating him because they were disrespectful. They always joked with adults. They were all stubborn and lying. The case was getting worse for Gina, with more evidence against her. Meanwhile, the police were considering handing the case over to the prosecution. Unable to bear hearing Myung-se complain, Haru took the initiative to go to the young girl to ask what happened. He reminded her that he was not her parent, so she could talk to him freely. Finally, the daughter recounted that the group of bad kids had threatened her with photos. If she did not confess, her drunken photos would be posted online. Haru decided to use force to make the leader confess everything. Haru took Gina's phone and texted Hoon-jun asking him to meet her at a warehouse. As soon as Hoon-jun arrived, Haru forced him into a chair. Hoon-jun almost fell when Haru pulled out a hammer, but he did not cause physical harm. Haru's method only created fear in Hoon-jun's mind. Haru kept threatening to cut off Hoon-jun's hand immediately. No matter how much Hoon-jun tried to hide, he was still a child and could not resist Haru. With just a few threats from Haru, Hoon-jun obediently confessed the truth. That night, it was Hoon-jun who beat Gina's friend. This caused the victim to bang his head against the wall. He had harmed Gina in revenge for her rejection of his feelings. Haru quickly deleted Gina's drunk photos from Hunjun's phone and reminded him to live a decent life. Thanks to that, Hunjun confessed all his crimes at police station and Myungse's daughter was cleared. Before Hunjun was taken away, Gina responded with a strong punch. In the midst of the recent tense days, the relationship between Haru and Myungse showed signs of cracking. Haru discovered that in his daughter's case, Myungse had secretly taken the phone records of Hunjun and another girl to investigate privately through calls from the telecommunications company. For a police officer, taking private call records is illegal. Haru used this to provoke Myungse. Myungse was worried about being disciplined, so he quickly begged Haru not to do it. Myungse even said that if necessary, he would quit his job. Haru was very satisfied with this solution. Haru wanted to see Myungse upset when he could not do the job he loved. However, Haru was quite surprised when Myungse actually quit his job, but he still did not feel happy, especially when Myungse returned the brain donation form that he had collected to Haru. This made Haru feel even more guilty and realized what was happening to him. He visited that aunt and she examined Haru's brain. She said that his brain had recognized Myungse as a friend. The reason he was not happy was that his friend was in pain. Because he was worried about Myungse, Haru went to his house to wait. But when asked, "What are you doing here?" he acted arrogant and drove away. Returning home, Haru received a package. Inside was a newspaper article about the murder of a doctor couple, Haru's parents. This was a gift sent by Old Huang. After many days of not being able to contact Haru, Old Huang planned to force him to participate in a game. Thanks to the newspaper article, Haru remembered the tragedy that happened to his parents. Old Huang achieved his goal when Haru visited him the next morning. During the meeting, Haru wanted to know the reason why his parents were murdered, as well as the identity of the perpetrator. Meanwhile, Old Huang took the opportunity to create a transaction. Old Huang asked Haru to write a petition to get him out of prison and also prevent his execution. Haru agreed to the proposal because he wanted to know the truth. Although he himself did not want to help Old Huang out, he had no other choice. Even when he asked about his parents' accident years ago, he did not get a clear answer. To find out the truth, Haru was forced to help Old Huang get his sentence overturned. With Haru's help, Old Huang was transferred to the hospital. True to his promise, Old Huang gave Haru a small piece of paper containing important information. Meanwhile, Haru secretly put a tracking device in Old Huang's pocket. Haru's aunt was worried about his agitation, so she sought help from the neuroscience investigation team. She specifically asked Myungse to assist. At the indicated location, Myungse found a recording of the conversation between Mr. Park and Old Huang. The murder weapon was a goblin, which was the one that killed Haru's parents. A moment later, Mr. Park appeared and frantically explained that everything was just a setup by Mr. Huang. He did not harm Haru's parents. His only mistake was stealing Haru's father's thesis. Haru suspected Mr. Park was the murderer even more, especially when the director beat Haru to hide his past of plagiarism. At the hospital, Mr. Huang agitatedly said that Haru would become a murderer. Meanwhile, Haru held a knife ready to stab Mr. Park to death. The director still struggled to justify that Mr. Huang had blackmailed him, so he went to the meeting place to get rid of the evidence. At this time, Haru's mind was filled with hatred. Fortunately, Myungse appeared in time to stop Haru. Myungse reminded Haru not to fall for Old Huang's trick and become a tool for his purposes. Remembering Old Huang's words, Haru's reason awakened. He did not harm Mr. Park. Instead, Haru and Myungse went to the police station. Haru decided to be hypnotized to remember the night his parents were murdered. With Seoa's help, Haru returned to the night of the tragedy. At first, he did not clearly identify the culprit, but in deep hypnosis, he finally saw the portrait of the culprit, Old Huang. In the past, Old Huang killed a patient and wanted Haru's father to keep it a secret, but Haru's father refused, resulting in the poor couple being murdered, leaving Haru as a young son. The next day, Haru and Myungse went to the hospital and discovered that Old Huang's tracking device was moving. The staff reported that the old man had climbed down the hospital window and escaped. The police were immediately mobilized to search for him. The car they were chasing stopped at a car wash. The tracking device was still inside, but when Myungse asked the suspect to open the door, the person who came out was not Old Huang. Checking the security camera, the police saw that Old Huang had met a young man outside the hospital. It was the repairman that Haru had met when he returned to his childhood home. Haru immediately guessed where Old Huang was going. At first, he wanted to go alone, but Myungse insisted on going with him to help. The detective duo visited Haru's childhood home. Everything was the same. Nothing had changed. As soon as they entered, Haru and Myungse inhaled poisonous gas, causing them to lose consciousness. When they woke up, they found that Old Man Huang had tied them up and attached devices to their heads. The old man smiled wickedly and announced that they would play an interesting game called Searching for Empathy. If Myungse and Haru's brain brainwaves matched by more than 80%, they would win and be released. On the contrary, if their brainwaves did not match, they would both become murderers. The other victims, Myung-se's wife and children, and Haru's aunt, were tied up in another room. Old Man Hwang turned on the water valve and poured water on Haru and Myung-se's relatives. He announced that if they did not win the game, their relatives would drown. Despite Haru and Myung-se's best efforts, their brainwaves only reached 15 to 20%. Myung-se angrily asked Haru how he felt. Did he have any sympathy or pity? Haru recalls the pictures that old Hwang showed him. It was meant to create fear, but his brain doesn't respond to horror. So Haru has to rely on Myung-se's emotions to trick his brain and create the same feelings of empathy and fear as Myung-se. Outside, Seo-ah and the chief follow their phones. They find Haru's childhood home and return to the torture room. Myung-se and Haru are still not on the same brainwave frequency. Meanwhile, the water has risen and the victims are about to drown. Old Hwang is pleased to see the duo fail to solve case. Just then, the doorbell rings, signaling Seo-ah and the chief are outside. Seo-ah was quickly tied up by Old Hwang with Myung-se and Haru to prevent Haru from feeling pity. Old Hwang kept calling the baby's name. This reminded Haru of the painful memories of his parents' death. What was more terrifying was that Old Hwang showed them a clip of their relatives drowning. Myung-se yelled at Old Hwang for being a pervert and thought of a way to save his family. In the moment of danger, Myung-se said, "Kill me." He wanted to see how Haru would feel if he died. Old Hwang was delighted with the idea and tried to attack Myung-se. But the scene that stimulated Haru's brain immediately reminded him of the times he fought alongside Myung-se. They were truly a life-and-death team. Haru's brain response immediately spiked to 86%. Both of their handcuffs were automatically removed. Old Hwang was scared by this miracle and ran away. Haru quickly untied his teammates. The group rushed to save their loved ones. The three girls were in danger of dying from being submerged in the water too long. At this time, Haru received a call from Old Hwang. Old Hwang wanted to play the final game, which was to put their lives on the line. Haru told Myung-se to stay and take care of the victims while he would confront Old Hwang alone. He met him in the room with the brain testing machine. They both underwent brainwave tests. Old Hwang thought their frequencies would match because they both suffered from mental disorders. But Haru was different from Old Hwang. He had a deep empathy. When the results showed incompatible, Haru stood up and shouted, "I won!" Haru pulled out a syringe containing poison. That was what Old Hwang had prepared for the loser. At first, Old Hwang hoped that Haru would kill him, but Haru did not let him have his way, because Haru was not as cold-blooded as Old Hwang. Now, he only had two choices, either go to jail or end his life with poison. After saying that, Haru left confidently, leaving Old Hwang alone in the room. Unable to accept his mistake, Old Hwang had to poison himself. The police quickly arrived to clean up the scene. Meanwhile, Myung-se breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Haru was still safe. Myung-se thanked Haru for saving him and his family. Before he could say any touching words, Haru showed his arrogant and unpleasant attitude as before. Thanks to the successful solving of Old Hwang's case, the entire crime prevention team was awarded once again. The happiest person was Myung-se, when honored twice in 1 year. His love story with Seo-ah also blossomed. He confessed and she agreed to be his girlfriend again. It seemed that everything was peaceful, but the appearance of a zombie threatened people's lives. What challenges will the crime-solving duo continue to face? Let's wait for part 2 of the movie. Thank you for your interest and watching.